How's the morning been so far? The run around with the fam?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, solid, man.
Violet's off at daycare.
Hell
Hugo's
yeah.
having a nap. All is good here.
So good, man. Sorry if I felt like a pest. I've just been excited to get you on, like since utilizing a lot of it with the team and stuff as well, and explaining, I guess, like some of the use cases behind it. I was like, hopefully I can get one of the guys behind it on here as well, and then I can, give it as a reference point, because even people like clients of mine have been uploading the video, like essentially like the footage of them lifting, and then they've had people reach out to them and be like, oh, like, well, what are you using this for? And then I was like, I'll have something to actually give them for reference soon, man.
Awesome. Yeah, nice. Absolutely.
And I was like, but yeah, so hopefully we can give some practical insights into the use case of it all, man. But I guess to get us started, for people who aren't familiar with you or VBT Coach or, the app itself, the Metric app, do you want to give us a quick run through on your history and then how it came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Jacob. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. I've been a strength coach. I did sports science in Deakin back in 2011, graduated 2013. Straight away went into the industry, was coaching in the private sector mostly, did a little bit of AFL work as well, but primarily private sector. And then sort of really got stuck into things at a company called Core Advantage. Got in kind of at the ground floor there, became a business partner as we opened up our first private performance center out in Oakley here in Melbourne, and did that for the better part of my 20s. COVID came around and that shut things down pretty rough here in Melbourne. So during that time, my brother David, who's a computer science engineer and was doing his degree at Monash, which is just around the corner from Core Advantage, was doing a bit of bit work for us, a little bit of kind of some management software building and some simple stuff like that. And he had this idea for a better way to track bar speed. He was a lifter as well, and we would train together, and we would sort of talk about velocity-based training, loved it, used it a bit in our gym, but there was always a friction point. It was always tricky to get started, or the tech wasn't very good or a bit buggy, or we didn't have enough of them that are expensive and the apps were a bit cumbersome. And we just always had talked kind of theoretically about what a better solution would be. And he sort of said, well, we could probably use like the camera on your phone and do it with computer vision. Fun idea. Yep. Cool. Haha. Well done. Then COVID came around and the gym was closed and we couldn't really do any coaching, and building the management software we were building wasn't really very useful at that time. So we said, let's explore that project. Let's explore that idea. And so that started at the start of 2020. And then by the end of 2021, we had a beta version of the app up on the Apple App Store. Got a bit of traction, got some interest in it, and then it just kind of kept rolling from there. So we built out the app and continued progressing and going and growing from there. And then eventually, we are where we are now. We're on both Android and iOS. It's got, sophisticated coach programming features, workout builders, leaderboards, progress tracking, real-time feedback, 13 different rep metrics. We've been scientifically validated against other technologies and against 3D motion capture labs. And it's now become our core business. Like our gym has kind of, we've actually ended our lease at our facility, and we kind of moved our gym in with another competitor around the corner and kind of joined forces with them. Mm-hmm. And now in terms of my work, I don't coach anymore, which is very weird, but I'm loving it. Building the app, and I'm now a self-taught engineer, so I'm doing a lot of the software work as well, customer support, reach out stuff, sort of right on the fringe between our product stuff and our customer support and sports science stuff, and getting feedback from coaches and lifters, and then implementing those features into the app is kind of where I live.
Yeah, super cool.
Building the app is really fun. It's cool because you can make a new feature in the software product and it affects the coaching and lifting of hundreds and thousands of lifters around the world.
So cool, man. Yeah, that's good. That was literally what my next question was going to be as well, was like, where do you sort of find yourself now, more so whether it is still in the coaching realm or more to do with the app itself. I guess just to give some context as well with what VBT is, and I've heard you, I think you said it yourself, that like you're not a huge fan of like the word VBT and use more like velocity training or like, other sort of, framings for it. So just to give us some insight, what was your first, I guess, experience with VT? And also, what was the thing that made it, I guess, so appealing to you, to the point where even when the idea come about to first design the app, that you were like, oh, this is actually contextually a good idea. Like, were you using like a flex or something like that initially, and you were like, I actually love this, I would love for it to be something more accessible?
I'm even older than that. I first got into velocity-based training, and the idea of I like the idea of barbell tracking, lift tracking, lifting with data is a good way of sort of thinking. The GPS, people who run don't call their running GPS-based running.
Yeah.
They just put on a watch and they get extra stats from their running. Like that's kind of what we're doing here. And so velocity tracking or technology apps, devices in the gym is really just giving us the same thing that runners get from running with a watch. You still run, you still get a heart rate, you still get a time and pace and all that sort of stuff, but you're still just running. And you're doing a long run, a slow run, tempo run, intervals, like it's all the same stuff. And so you still lift for strength, for power, for hypertrophy. You're just getting more data along the way. I think that's my kind of problem with velocity-based strength. The idea that you kind of have to throw out the paradigm and start again from scratch. And it's like, no, if you're not using velocity for every decision, you're wasting your time and you got to spend thousands of dollars on technology. And it's like, well, the thing I really liked about it first was when I was coaching. Before we had our own private performance center, we were coaching out of someone else's gym. And so it was a bodybuilding, powerlifting kind of gym in Balaclava, St Kilda area in Melbourne here. And it was a tough gym. And we had our junior athletes out, mostly basketballers and footy players in this gym. And we get at our gym away with the string. And we get that every now and again, just, not every workout, but every now and again. And we'd sort of switch that session or that couple of sessions focus from how much weight can we lift in sets and reps to power. And we'd really focus on sort of watts and watts per kilo. Put up a little leaderboard who could produce the most watts per kilo of body weight on a trap bar or a trap bar jump, a hang clean, things like that, explosive kind of movements. And athletes were just like, you mean there's another number to compete on? It's not just weight on the bar? Because a lot of our advanced athletes, and they're, 15 to 18-year-olds, going for a triple body weight squat as a junior basketballer who's trying to make a state team isn't going to make your vertical lift any better.
For sure.
Pick that double body weight squat number, work on some single leg stuff, build all the stuff around that. But chasing a bigger number on the barbell, as much as the boys in particular hated it, wasn't really a benefit. In fact, the risk starts to outweigh the reward for that population. And so when we got the device out and we started measuring a different number and they could lift a sub-maximal weight, but set a new personal record or get to the top of a new leaderboard, their eyes would just light up. Yeah. And those sessions would be explosive. They would lock in. There'd be like lots of rah-rah, lots of really positive competitive energy in the gym. It's just like, there's something here. There's just something to this idea that makes athletes light up. And when the boys lost to the girls in particular, they got really competitive and they didn't like that. And we had some really strong female athletes in our gym and they would kick the boys' butts because it was pound for pound. And the boys didn't like that. And then they got more competitive. They said, well, what do I have to do to make this number go up? And then it started a sort of a sports science conversation about rate of force development and plyometrics and all these other qualities we were trying to work on in the gym, but aren't attached to weight on the bar. And so we had all these things we wanted to do in our gym and in our performance program, but all they really wanted to do was lift bigger weights. It's like, well, that's good, but it's only one part of the puzzle. And so the adding data and putting numbers on the other qualities opened up a conversation and opened up trust in our athletes to give us to go, how do I improve that watts per kilo number? How do I make the bar speed go up? And that was, there's something, But the big problem was the reason we didn't do that every workout was you still need strength. So a lot of athletes still just need to lift heavy weights. Like that is part of it as well. And we just didn't have enough devices or the scale and the friction each time we got it out was too high. And so every time we did it was like a novelty but took extra coaching and we had to teach the interns how to do it. And the app was a bit clunky and the Bluetooth, this is a while ago. Bluetooth would drop out and the iPad would run out of battery. And so it was complicated. And so it just kind of was this fun thing we do on the side.
Yeah, it's the tool itself has literally just been such a gateway to conversation behind intent of training as well, right? Like it just people asking why, or like even when certain like prescriptions have been given, it just helps people sort of understand what that piece is like truly asking of them. And even I had a conversation with one of the girls the other day and I was like, we're basically still just like fucking children. Like you put the number on the screen and we're just like chasing that, it's like so much of the research behind it even having like a positive effect is just the fact that people have been able to see a number and try and beat it. Like, and it just, increasing that, like, the concentric intent of that lift. So it is so funny that like, there is obviously so much like research around, the physiological aspect of it, but so much of it is just the psychological output for the lifting and having the numbers and the targets and different things to chase that aren't always just weight on a bar. I find just even people being able to see trends in the weight, like the speed of a specific weight go up and just be able to explain to someone that is also like a relative metric for strength gain without them just having to see an absolute number increase on the bar, because outside of, powerlifting and people implementing like conjugate methods, like not everyone's like just maxing out constantly to the point where we get that like dopamine hit of like a new sort of record. So to just have these other metrics to sort of give people these like, trail of treat type things to just keep them moving forward in their training. It's just like, it's a great library of metrics to be able to utilize. Have you found like with people that are using the app, is it a lot more? Cause I know like when I add like a new client to the app, it says like what are they doing with their training? Statistically, have you found that there's a certain population that sort of leans towards the app? Is it more weightlifters, more powerlifters? Is there, CrossFit people, or is it primarily team sport based guys?
What's both really nice to see and also really tricky for us is we're really evenly spread.
Okay.
So it'd be nice if we were just used by powerlifters.
Yeah.
Our website could be powerlifty. Our Instagram could be powerlifty. I could talk like a powerlifter about everything, but it's really not. So there's a good spread of powerlifters, less weightlifters. I think that's just because weightlifting in general is less popular than powerlifting in terms of a
population
volume number of people. Exactly. Strength and conditioning is really high. That is both strength and conditioning coaches who are working in performance centers or junior levels or doing performance type training with their clients, but also people who kind of, I think there's a growing number of people who train, I hate the word train like an athlete, but they kind of train athlete-ish without being an actual athlete or without calling it CrossFit or without calling it something. Like they like to run, they like to do, maybe they play some pickup sport or some sort of hobby type sport, basketball, tennis, or whatever it might be. And then in the gym, they don't want to just lift barbells. So they do, some single leg work, dumbbell work, like they kind of train, again, I hate the term, but like a functional kind of training approach. So I think we've got a lot of people who do that kind of stuff. So both coaches and athletes, and, everyone is an athlete, kind of athletes, like general population, but not just strength training. We have a fair few CrossFitters. So CrossFit's pretty popular. Not as much as powerlifting, but it's certainly a growing space. And then just general fitness people as well. People who just like the gym and want to track things, and the kind of, data nerds, people who like spreadsheets, tend to gravitate towards the extra numbers, and they kind of get the idea behind it. It's one of those things you don't have to do it every workout every single week, although that does help. You can kind of dip in and out of it. Like like how we were using as a testing method on occasion with our athletes. You can go to run a block, run a cycle, or run a couple of months of velocity tracking, see where things are sitting, drop back out, go back to your normal training as well. So I think we have some general population fitness people, personal trainers as well, who do that kind of training where they use it on a semi-regular or casual basis, just dipping into it at an occasional testing tool.
For sure. Yeah. I found that like, depending on who the client is and even where they are in their training, like we just had like semifinals. So like some bigger events and stuff recently. And I've obviously only more so for remote clients started using it. We had like an eNode. So like a, one that I use with some of the crew in the gym. And then even now, like I've been giving it to more people as they sort of go into their off season. And I've just found, people have like very much been enjoying it. Obviously like super intrigued with the reason behind it, but as they've actually been able to start to see some trends in lift and have different numbers and stuff like that, there's definitely been more buy-in for the process, which I've found to be something that's pretty cool. As far as it goes for, I guess like you sort of touched on this before with the GPS and the running side of things, and I've seen like a lot of the, I guess, core literature around it was VBT was given as like a prescription tool in a way. And like, you were given like zones and like different things to train specific qualities. But the more that I've even read from you and, some other people in the space, that it's like potentially not the best way that VBT can actually be utilized. So I guess from a practical takeaway standpoint, if some other, some other remote CrossFit coach in my specific circumstance, what would the selling point be to utilize VBT in their sort of like remote coaching system?
Oh man, there's so many.
There's
so many different ways you can take it. So I think number one is it doesn't replace subjective feel. So some people, one of the big problems with the old prescriptive stuff is like, here are your velocity numbers, hit them or else. Like it was kind of really like, they're the numbers, that's all that matters. But like velocity is just one of those things that gets folded in with everything else. So if you're chasing strength, the weight on the number of plates on the bar, the weight on the bar is going to matter. Number of reps you're going to do is going to influence things well. You're chasing more mass, so you're going to go after more volume, drop sets, things like that. Adding velocity gives you a read on, you mentioned it earlier, the big factor is it gives you a read on your intent and the quality of your training. So all the other numbers we look at, load, rest, even rest periods, reps, and weight are really volume-based metrics. It tells the quantity of our training. How much are we doing? How many sets of squats? How many reps? How much weight? How much tonnage? velocity gives you an insight, and the other metrics as well, power, range of motion, tempo. These metrics give you a look inside each rep and tell you what it looks like inside the reps. So if you did a set of 5, what were those 5 reps actually like in terms of, were they consistent range of motion? How much fatigue did you have across the set? So how much of a burn was that 5 reps? Like how close are you to your point of failure? And then the bigger one that you talked about earlier, which is intent, is like how close are you on each of those reps to producing the most force you could for that weight? And then over time, can you lift that X weight, 100 kilos or whatever it might be, with more intent and therefore higher velocity every single workout? And if you're not, well, why? Can we ask some questions about and explore what's caused that dip in intent or dip in output? And so it's really, it gives us a way to quantify the quality of your training. We want to know how well you're training, and velocity puts a label on that.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing would be the readiness aspect of it too, right? Like how have you found the best case to implement that would be? Like I've only played around with this a little bit because like I'm still trying to figure out the best way that it can be implemented in like a CrossFit context. I did have someone who has like a pure weightlifting day, and I used the muscle snatch at like 50% as sort of like a readiness metric that would help determine whether, you know, on a certain day that they would push to like a heavy double at that weight, or whether it would be more aligned in a, you know, reduce the loads by say 10% of whatever's been prescribed if we're out of range. What sort of use cases do you believe that it can be used as a readiness tool most effectively?
Yeah, so the trend number is the really nice one in the Metric app. So Metric will, after each weight, so say that 50%, or say, let's call it 50 kilos, just to keep it sort of as an absolute weight number. Every time you do that muscle snatch at 50 kilos, you'll get a velocity number. Mean velocity, peak velocity, all that kind of thing gets logged into the Metric app. As you accumulate weeks, you start to accumulate like a rolling average of velocity at that fixed weight. So you do 50 kilos week 1, it's 2 meters, next it's 2.1, next it's 1.95, like it goes up and down as you go. What we're looking for a steady upward trend or flat. Like flat is fine for a lot of athletes. Doing the same weight at the same velocity is actually a green light. I consider that, that's a good sign. What we're looking for is big outliers. Days when numbers are really good and you go, oh, things are flying today. And it's like, yeah, I feel amazing. All right, we're going for it. Today we're actually going to try and, that 150 kilo PR, whatever it might be. Today might be the day to go for that. You got to use all the other factors as well. Time of season, time in the training phase. Like, is that actually appropriate? This is still where you need to use your coaching decisions, and athletes need to apply some thinking to it as well. But if things are looking good on that sort of trend number, that percentage of your 6-week rolling average, which is how Metric reports it, then that's kind of your, today's good. I'm going to get after it. Intense high. I'm feeling fresh. The numbers back that up, and I've got now confidence to get after a really hard session. Yeah. On the flip side, though, is we want baseline. We want 100% of our 6-week average. We want 101%, slightly creeping up every week. If all of a sudden you do 2 or 3 warm-up sets and they're all at like 90%, 92% of your 6-week rolling average, and this is all reported in the app. You don't have to set up a spreadsheet for this. Just you record the sets, Metric tells you your trends, and it shows you an arrow pointing up or down. It's green or red. Really simple. Nice little chart. If you get all of a sudden you do that, that baseline set, that indicator set, like your 50 kilo muscle snatch, for example, and all of a sudden it's like 92%. You go, oh, that's weird. All right, I'll do one more warm up, and that's also at 90% of normal. It's like, wow, 10% down from your 6-week average. That's a pretty significant drop in performance. Like, now it's time for decisions. Is it because slammed at work, or I'm in exams if I'm a student, or, I was up all night last night watching some sports and I should have been in bed, or I'm in the middle of a massive training block and this is expected. Maybe you just push through. Maybe some situations like, actually, now's the time to execute some mental toughness and get after it. But other days, like, that's out of the blue. Like, you should be in the middle of a normal training block. Things should be steady. And all of a sudden we're seeing a big drop. Time to think, should with that, two heavy doubles day become one moderate single, and we leave it there and we go do some accessory work? Or do we not even bother with something really technical and complex like our snatches, and we go do work on something else instead? Do some, lightweight, moderate volume squats instead, or some technique work, or some mobility stuff. The beauty of a sport like CrossFit is you've always got other stuff to work on. So, you got to pick and choose your days when you do the really intense. High risk sounds a bit dramatic, but like that sort of higher leverage, higher intensity, higher complexity work, maybe that waits till this afternoon or tomorrow, depending on what your schedule looks like. And so you can use that trend number to sort of optimize what we do right now in the here and now, and also how hard we push that thing as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Super cool. I'm still sort of, I guess, navigating how I sort of write that as a remote coach to be able to
Yeah.
like implement that auto regulation, because obviously there's a certain level of understanding that people have to have. And then even like what you just said then, the subjective nature of like not over analyzing the data and being like 10% slower, like feel like crap. And it's like, you could be like, somewhere in your cycle that's affecting that. Like you said, sleep wise, stress, all of these things that people may just forget about because they've just looked at this 10% number and then freaked out. Whereas realistically, they just need to push through. But
Sometimes a nice way to do it is to do multiple sets. So instead of
Mhm.
doing just a single indicator set like that 50 kilo we've been using as an example, use multiple warm-up sets. So that way athletes don't freak out at one bad result. If I do, I do a lot of trap bar deadlift. My favorite lift, I do it a lot. It's kind of almost always my 1A on my big day, and I'll do trap bar deadlift, work up to my heavy, singles if it's a singles day, or fives or threes, whatever it might be. I almost always do the same warm-up sets. I go 50 kilos, I go 90 kilos, I go 110 kilos. Then I see where I'm at. I just do, that's how my plates, I've got a 25 kilo bar. It's how the weird plates are set up for me. And it's just those weights. So I've got hundreds of sets on those weights. I don't freak out at the 50. I don't freak out at the 90. I wait till after the 110 and I look at the trend score for all three of those weights. If I see 99, 101, 99 again, that's fine. Normal day, followed the plan. But if I see 92, 94, 96, all 4% plus below what I should be, and this isn't comparing to my all-time best. My all-time best, I'm 35 now. My all-time best is in the past. It's going to be a while before I get back there, unfortunately, with two kids and a busy schedule. But if I'm under my 6-week average, what I've done in the last 6 weeks, 6 weeks ago, you is actually now better than you are today. It's like the training has not been effective. And it's transient. It might just be today. I might come back in 48 hours later and be 110 on everything. So it's not like I've wasted a training block.
Yeah.
But if you see, below 95 on 3 sets in a row, you go, ooh, that's now a concern. And then if I combine that with, well, how am I feeling? How's the RPE on these sets feeling? Like they all feel heavier than it should normally, or my warm-up felt more sluggish than normal, or if I did like some sort of jump test as well in there can be a handy thing to look at. You combine all these factors together and you go, oh, okay, now's the decisions. And I use a simple traffic light system. Green light, push harder than you planned. Yellow light, follow the plan. Red lights, some sort of deload. And usually it's planned in advance. So for me, it's usually just drop reps. So if I'd planned 3 sets of 4, it becomes 3 sets of 2 at the same weight. So I'm still hitting the same intensity. I'm just way less volume. So that I don't dig a bigger hole, given I'm already kind of in a hole. If that makes sense?
Yeah, no, I love that. That's definitely one of the best use cases for it so far that I've seen is just like that auto regulation of volume, just removing some of the potential junk volume of people like grinding through reps. And I guess, maybe we can touch a little bit on Kahneman's size theory and actually getting the intent if we're trying to be moving fast and recruiting the right kind of like muscle fibers and stuff. I want to touch on that a little bit. But the next thing that I wanted to touch on, this is such a selfish podcast. I'm just like, I'm here, I'm like asking questions. Other people will get value from this surely. But
selfish podcasts are the best because if you find the one that aligns with your selfish interest, then it becomes really, really good. So if you love a thing and you find someone else who talks about and loves that thing, it's like, we're just best friends. You don't know it, but we're best friends.
Yeah, so good. One of the contexts or like use cases for it that appealed most to me was using velocity loss and like using that as like an auto regulation of like whether it's set size or load or like rep ranges and stuff like that. And one of the things that I actually read from your website was whether it was the potential or maybe a better metric to use is last rep velocity instead of just straight velocity loss. And I saw that chart that you had where like if someone comes in feeling really good, that velocity loss number could actually be, quite exaggerated. And therefore maybe they're actually cutting off volume earlier than they should be because they're actually moving really well. So my question to you is...
velocity loss actually becomes suppressed if you're fatigued.
If
we've just talked about that trend number, that is reported in the Metric app, trend takes your best 3 reps of a set. So usually rep 1, 2, and 3 when you're at your freshest in a set, and it doesn't actually look at volume. So trend is like you could do 5 sets of 10. We're only going to look at 5 sets of 3 for the trend score in the Metric app. So that's kind of how it works. So if someone's doing heaps of volume, we actually don't look at the volume for the trend because it's based on intent, which is the top of your set. Intent is how explosive you are. If you've had 2.5 minutes rest before the last set, you've added the plates and now you've gone again. That's what intent is, and that's what trends look at. For velocity loss, if you come to the gym and your trend is lower, so your best rep is lower, all of a sudden the drop from your, I'm using my hands, this is useless for people who are listening, but your drop from your fastest rep, which is now slower than normal because you're fatigued, the drop from that to your last rep is now less of a percentage. So if you normally come in and you do 10 reps at 100 kilos and you see 30% loss, on the day you're fatigued, you'll actually only see 18% loss, because not because you didn't fatigue as much. The last rep is the same slowness. The first rep is slower as well. So everything is down. And so that messes up with velocity loss. So if you're a really well-tuned, high intermediate to advanced level lifter with proper strength, velocity loss becomes less and less useful. Great for intermediate lifters. If you're a novice, top novice, intermediate level lifter, and you're doing sets of 5 to 10 reps, velocity loss is perfect. Cut your sets at 25%, use it all the time. It will show you that you're training hard, but not too hard. Beautiful. As you get more advanced and as you get more serious and more sophisticated with your rep set schemes and things like that, then velocity loss becomes useless, because the day you're fatigued, the day you should be doing less, all of a sudden velocity loss deserts you.
Yeah.
So that's where your last rep targeting, which I think is what you're kind of getting at, becomes really valuable.
And more so in the, I guess, the context of some of the absolute strength type percentages as well, right? Like if you had someone doing heavy triple back squats, so it could be something along the lines of, say, 3 to 4 repetitions until, or unless the bar drops below, say, like, you know, whatever their general slowest bar speed is before failure. So let's just say it was like 0.35 or something. Yep. Would that be an appropriate prescription for something like that in comparison?
That's the perfect use for last rep velocity. Yeah. So if we use the back squat example, typically lifters will max out. They're like the set to failure will stop somewhere around 0.3 for a high bar back squat. So 0.3 meters per second is the slowest speed you can successfully complete a rep. If you try it again after that, the next one would be 0, because you'll fail. Like you don't have the strength and the ability to recruit your muscle fibers and keep the bar moving up without it crushing you. And so 0.3, that's your floor. That's the slowest you can lift any rep. So if you take every set to 0.3 meters per second, that's every set is now going to failure. Whether it's 5 reps, last rep 0.3, that's failure. 1 rep, 0.3, that's also failure. So what we want to do is we want to set a buffer. So if we want athletes working really hard, 9 RPE, 1 rep in the tank, we might set that last rep target at 0.35, 0.05 meters per second above their last rep. So that means that last rep they do is either 1 in the tank or none in the tank. It's 9.5 RPE. But what we probably want is a buffer. So we probably want to be doing sets of 3, but with a last rep velocity of 0.4 or 0.42. So we've now, that's now 30% of a velocity buffer, a 0.1 meter per second buffer from our failure point. So we're now looking at more like 7.5 to 8 RPE. Got kind of 2 reps in the tank. But instead of calling it an RPE and going, I kind of think I had 2 reps left, we're looking at really specifically. It's like, I know I fail at 0.3. So if I stop at around 0.4 in my last rep, I know I've left reps in the tank, so I can go again on another set. And so for that, you'd load up the bar to what you think is going to be 3 reps of that, and you keep doing reps until the app gives you a buzzer and tell you you've failed, until you've hit that 0.4 meter per second target. And so that's kind of how you use it. And so you might do like an easy block where you're doing sets of 6, but stopping at 0.45 or 0.5. So you're a long way away from your failure point. And then as you get closer to and your intensity goes up, you drop that number. You go from 0.5, 0.45, 0.4, maybe even 0.35 for a couple of weeks as you do some singles or some doubles. And again, you use that kind of number as your target. And so if you go in and you do your triple and all of them are above 0.4, whatever your target was, we can do another one. We can do 4. We can actually get an extra rep in today because we're still a long way away confidently from our point of failure. So a day that was supposed to be 3 threes might become a set of 4, a set of 4, and a set of 3. So we've got an extra 2 reps in there without actually compromising our recovery.
Yeah, that's literally where I love it. It's like, rather than them people going in and doing the 3x6 and then just like absolutely hauling ass through like the last 2 repetitions, it might have looked like a 6 or 5.
And they're gapping, and then
And once again, it's like, not just be like, risk, like it's, probably.
And it swings both ways. It's not just about holding athletes back. It's letting them push. Because one day that 3x6 becomes 3x8. I feel amazing, and they just get 8 reps on every set. And then next thing, one really clever use of this is when athletes are new to it, they go, we're going to do 3x6, but you've got to keep everything above 0.45 meters per second. And they go in and they give you 9, 9, and 11 reps. Like, 10 more kilos, please. Like, let's add more
Yes.
weight to the bar. You're not even close to the zone I thought you were. Whereas they had been before telling you, oh, it's a 7.5 RPE, it's an 8 RPE. And it's like, actually, they were kidding themselves. So when I am not a powerlifter, I'm not a CrossFitter, but I did a little bit of a powerlifting block a while ago with a powerlifting coach to get a feel for it. Because I want to experience how they go through their programming to get more of a sense of it in terms of building out. And the coach said, I don't trust your RPEs at all. We need to do some AMRAPs and as many reps as possible sets. And I would do these and I was like, that felt like a 7.5. That's pretty tough RDLs. And he goes, all right, same weight as many reps you can, 25. It's like, okay. I had no idea where my actual failure point was. I was just like, oh yeah, I felt my hammies stretch a little bit. And it's like, no, those sets of 8 were like RPE 6s at most, if not less. So the idea of like using an actual objective velocity number is really, really powerful.
So good. And because I have seen some camps where it's like, oh, it's like VBT is like all conservative and it's like, it doesn't let people to push. And I'm like, man, like sometimes I've done these AMRAP sets with people and it's like, we're literally going to go until the bar drops below this speed and they'll just keep going. And it's like in the past, it's like their AMRAP -2 or AMRAP 1 in reserve number was like nothing. And I'm like, you don't even know what pain is. Like you haven't even pushed. Like it's like you're tapping out mentally when physically there's still so much more there. And it's great for them to actually see that and see like the fact that they're able to maintain bar speed and push way past whatever they thought this subjective, number was. So I love it for that sort of stuff. When it comes to, I guess we just talked about like using last rep velocity instead of velocity loss. And you did mention obviously more intermediate lifters or, some more of the rep ranges in that sort of 5 to 10. But do you see use cases for it in more dynamic effort work to make sure that the speed is potentially being maintained? So for example, if someone was doing like band resisted back squats and you could use velocity loss as a metric for like a set cutoff. So for example, if the average set speed dropped below, 15% or something like that, that rather than doing like the 10 or 12 sets prescribed, they would terminate it at 8.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot for cluster sets. So I'll use a velocity loss across an entire cluster. So cluster sets, if you're not familiar, is where you take a set of 8 and instead of doing one set of 8, you do 4 sets of 2 with a little mini break in between. So it's like really good in Olympic lifting if you want to get good volume in but don't have much time. So it allows you to get more reps in short time by just breaking up your sets with these little mini reps, mini rest periods. And so what you can do is record a single set across the cluster and you keep doing doubles every 30 seconds until you get, say, 10 or 15% velocity loss. So you'd use a tight, for this, I do it with power training and I use a really tight velocity loss number. So first set, really explosive, nice and poppy. And then we want to just keep going and get as many sets as we can until we hit to that 10, 15% velocity loss number. You can do the same for strength and sort of your sets. But I would tend to use it across multiple sets if you're trying to get volume and density in. So you're like, okay, first set, we got, most of our reps are above 1 meter per second if we're doing light and fast stuff. And it's like, okay, we're going to keep doing sets of 8 until we really fall below 0.7, which is kind of like a 30% velocity loss, if you will. And it's like, I need 2 reps or, 3 reps in a set below that before we stop. And so good chance to push your athletes and get volume in, but have them continue giving good intent across those. And, in this situation, maybe under fatigue as well. Like how do they respond to that fatigue and that sort of higher work volume as well?
Yeah, that's actually super cool. I like that concept.
I want to build a cluster mode feature into Metric. I think that would be a really clever way.
That would be sick.
Because because Metric already auto detects the start and stop of your set and each rep. So it's already got an automatic rest timer based on when you put the bar down. And so the rest time you see in the workout is based on when the last rep ended, not just based on the stop button. So you could do that, but keep it going in the set and go, okay, you've done 2 reps, beep, timer starts, it shows a big timer on the clock, or it gives you another beep when it's time to go. You do your next 2 and tells you how each cluster compares to the cluster before. And then when you hit that sort of 10, 15 or 20% velocity loss, whatever it might be, you can kind of stop your cluster that way. So your band resisted works really good, like kind of West Side barbell-y, almost like we're going to do 4s with this weight and these bands. You're just going to do 4 reps. We're going to rack it, rest 20 seconds. We're going to do 4 reps. We're going to rack it until we get to 20% velocity loss. You get a lot of volume in. You really push your athletes to work hard. And it's like, we're only going to stop winning 2 sets fall below 20% velocity loss. Because the first one might be just like, they just kind of like gave up mentally. And then the next one, you get them to give up physically by actually pushing a little bit harder. Or they come back and they get a few more sets in.
Phenomenal. I look forward to the feature implementation.
Working on it.
That was actually like, yeah, mid podcast feature request. One thing I was going to say is, how do you find like distinguishing loads where band or chain resistance is actually implemented as well? Like, is there any way that that can be worked around? Because I know at the moment it's like if someone records themselves and they put in 100 kilos, but then the other week that they've done 100 kilos with light bands, and that could skew. Is that a problem where you're like, actually, like, is this just a problem in which it's faces? And then as a coach, I'm just trying to look at things in isolation more so?
Yeah,
Or is there like...
That's a 5-year problem. We still have not solved that one.
Because the only thing that I thought of was like potentially having an exercise grouped as like back squat with light bands versus just high bar back squat. And it almost just had its own name. And then potentially the coach just has to distinguish what is light band, what is moderate band, what is, heavy band.
That's currently the best option we have. Okay. You create a custom message, you go high bar back squat plus orange band or plus orange, or plus band or plus chains, whatever it might be. Or you could deadlift for chains and just like you call them different exercises, and then they forever live in isolation.
Yeah.
I'd like the idea of like adding little tag chips to a set. And so then you could like go, everything's a high bar back squat, but we look at today, we're just going to look at the, plus orange and you add that filter tag to your data, and you can look at that. And so you can look at that back squat compared to all back squats, or just compared to, box squats, or just compared to from a rack, pull, or whatever it might be. And you can kind of use those filters. Tricky though, because every coach calls things differently.
Yeah.
So it becomes really like you build that for 5 coaches and then you piss off 50 other coaches.
Yeah. That was the other thing that I thought. I was like, maybe it just has to be like is that a feature at the moment? Like a custom exercise ad?
Yeah. So you can build custom exercises, and then they, if you've got a coach plan and you're managing your athletes, that custom exercise is then shared across the entire organization. So that's one way to do it. And then you write those custom exercises into your programs and share those. That's the best way to do it for now.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, that's definitely something that I'll be looking at doing. So one thing, I guess now, like, just to touch a little bit more on the app, and then we'll go back into it. But like, what's sort of the trajectory that you see over the next sort of like couple of years for the app? Like, what are the things that you want to be able to implement? Is there things where you have ideas, but like technology isn't there yet? Like potentially like through the phone, is there like, what sort of, I guess, roadblocks have you had, but you've got these ideas of things you want to put in?
Yeah. So we want to be able to track more things, and we want to be able to surface more relevant data. They're kind of the 2 pillars. If we can track more things and then tell you what that means, that's kind of the real keys to Metric. So there are a lot of technologies, apps, devices, and things that can record a lot of things, but they don't really give you much in terms of like, okay, I've got thousands of data points, but now I have to spend half an afternoon digging through, trawling through, finding it, working out what that means. We want to be the app that kind of surfaces that stuff for coaches who are busy. They need the insights, and they don't want to go making their own spreadsheets and their own, Python scripts to scrape it all out.
Figure it out, yeah.
So that's why the trend number, for example, is really good. Like, it does the computation and the analysis, and it gives you the number, one number, green arrow up, red arrow down. That's all you need to know, kind of thing. So more things like that, more stats like that. Cloud video storage is a really big one for our... Yeah, you're nodding your head.
I think that was one of the first things that everyone asked. They're like, can you see my videos? Like, can you see my videos? And I was like, oh, I can't. I can see your numbers, but like, anything that's worth actually assessing uploaded video. But like, to be fair, like that's a small thing to overcome as a coach, like just getting people to upload it to the programming app. And I know obviously how expensive storage is. Like,
yeah, so I'm exploring cloud video storage at the moment, actually. That's going to be one of the next ones off the rank. It will be expensive. There'll be some amount of storage built into coach accounts, probably enough to allow coaches. So I think a lot of coaches want to see videos a couple of times, and then anything short of like a PR or a real landmark video is going to be deleted and gone forever. So I think we'll add like a couple of gigabytes, 1 or 2 gigabytes, something like that, depending on the size of your organization, built into your plan. And then that'll allow, you can then set the controls like, all right, I want every athlete to upload every set. All videos come straight into the thing, and then I'll purge them after 7 days, for example, or after 30 days, or whatever it might be, or delete everything that's not a personal record or not favorited, for example.
Yeah.
That would be probably how the feature would work. Yeah. And then for coaches who do want a considerable backlog of videos, that'll probably be an additional subscription. So it's not tricky to do. It's just building in the customization features so that coaches don't have, if you've got a big plan, maybe 5 or 10 gigabytes of video storage, and all of a sudden it's full within 10 days because you've got 100 athletes sending every video in. All of a sudden you've got like 9 gigabytes of just people walking into the score rack. So we want to avoid that situation.
Yes.
So the cloud video storage is coming soon, and that will obviously give you more data and more insights, and the bar path will be connected to that. It will be connected to the set data. So you can look at set data here, video here. That'll be really handy. And then the ability to add comments to that, I think, will be a really powerful feature for coaches. The ability to actually share your communication about a set in the app where the set was recorded. So the athlete goes, they do their workout, they send you the 5 videos. You're maybe watching in real time, watching the videos upload as they do their workout, or later that day or the next day. And you look and you go, why is she doing that much weight? What happened here? And then you go, Sally, what the hell were you doing here? Or the opposite. This was fantastic. I think you could have pushed harder, more weight next workout. And that's when you can start educating your athletes on those sort of trend decision-making ideas. Because you'll see the video, you'll see the quality of the rep, you'll see the bar path, and then you'll see the trend numbers, the velocity numbers, compared to their record type stuff. And you'll be able to go, this looked easy. This looks so good. And all of a sudden, you're basically in the session with them. So yes, there are workouts right now. You can export the video and then you can share it in WhatsApp or Messenger or wherever you share your videos. But having it live next to the data and having it automatic, so coaches get, the next morning they wake up and they go, so 6 athletes trained yesterday. Have your coffee and you can watch, everyone's top sets or a couple of sets from everyone, and then give them their comments all in the one platform. I think that would be a really powerful move for us as well.
Yeah, cool. No, I'm definitely excited for that. I know some of the crew are definitely excited for that as well. Let's go back into some of the other training prescription side of things. You able to give some, I guess, more insight, contextually to where the velocity loss varies in gender and what the reason for that is primarily. I've seen some different things where females are able to handle a higher sort of quote unquote velocity loss prescription in training to get the same sort of strength gains. Some of the numbers have been that they could use 40% instead of 20%.
Really?
Have you seen that? No,
I've not seen that. No. A lot of the research I've seen is very sparse for female athletes.
Yeah.
It's almost always using men. It's almost always using 1 or 2 exercises. And it's pretty kind of linear and not very interesting in that sense. So I've seen a lack of female athlete data in the velocity-based training space. And I'd like to see more, because you might be right. Maybe they respond better to bigger clusters or higher volume or less volume or more back off sets. Or I don't know.
Because I know in general, a lot of my female athletes can just generally handle more volume, more squat volume in general compared to the guys.
Interesting.
But
working at the same percentage of their 1RM, so same relative intensity.
Yeah.
A
lot of the girls are definitely able to recover and handle more volume than the guys. And that's one of the things where it's is it just a mass, just total mass moved in a week, the total tonnage as a guy, and obviously that's potentially exaggerated a lot more, whether there's something to female physiology, whether their 1RM percentages they're using aren't as close to what their 1RMs potentially are, and maybe that's why they're able to handle it more so. But I'll find sort of what that reference point that I made was, so I don't butcher it, and I might send it through to you, to you later as well. So
there's maybe something in that though, because we always talk about percentage of 1RM. It's so let's get a genuine 1RM and let's pretend everyone's 1RMs and percentages are exactly the same. But let's say men on average are 20% stronger for the same weight or something like that. There is some level of gender and physiology-based differences there. I don't know what the exact numbers are off the top of my head. But at some point, percentage of 1RM becomes just absolute load on a barbell on a human spine.
Yeah.
And so if a man is 20% stronger than a woman, are his vertebral column, is his spine 20% denser, 20% more ligament stability? There's all these facts we look at in terms of percentage of 1RM, but at some point, a bigger human, male or female, has a bigger load to lift. So you see this with powerlifters. As the powerlifters move into the super heavyweight competition stuff, they deadlift way less often. Because the stress of picking up 400 kilos is 400 bloody kilos, no matter how big you are. And so sometimes relative to body weight becomes a bit of, I don't have research to back this up, but this is just a gut feeling. I reckon there's a point where there's a tip or an inflection where just having a certain amount of mass on your body is just super stressful for the ligaments. I just don't think the big humans have that much more ligament and bone and all these other things that account for 400 kilos picked up versus 250 kilos picked up.
Yeah, no,
I think they're different beasts. Just like, in basketball, we're going to train our big, tall, long people with giant, long femurs differently to our point guards.
Mhm.
We would do the same with huge humans versus small humans. And so I think volume prescription at that advanced level probably becomes weight class specific. And so if you've got those giant, big weightlifters and powerlifters, they would follow very different programs to the small guys who are doing 4 times body weight, but still half the absolute weight as the big guys and girls.
100%. And there's probably a conversation to be had just around like neuromuscular efficiency of those higher like level athletes as well. Like I just know if I get some of the crew that are the stronger ones, when they do their max effort days, I know the sort of effect that that's going to have on them for the following days compared to some of the other people, right? Because in CrossFit, like there's a lot of people where, I mean, if I was just to make it a very basic one line, you have these like more endurance adapted athletes, these more like strength bias adapted athletes, and generally the programs sort of vary accordingly, right? Like you have people who are trying to build fitness and get better at the sport. Like let's just say that they're equal in their movement economy and skill set and fitness and all that. You have a lot of the times where it's like their limiter is their strength, and the other people where they're just trying to build quote unquote their engine. And so those people who are generally a little bit more endurance limited, yeah, those max effort days just pummel them into the ground. So like I can definitely see that conversation being had. And I remember Australian strength coach even talking about something like that the first time that Hafthor was going for his like 500 kilo deadlift, and about the frequency and how like low that frequency was because of how much effort it required to just pick 500 kilos up off the floor.
Yep.
Yeah. When it comes to, I guess, the intent and I guess utilizing it somewhat in a prescription-based setting, is there a way that you've delivered the information to individuals around like that are trying to get stronger? So let's just say could use like one of my clients who is potentially whether you put him in the category of like, I think Travis Mash talks about like he's got like the strong but slow, or like he's got the powerful.
He's a truck, not a Ferrari.
Yeah, sort of thing, right? So it's like those athletes where you're trying to get them to be, I guess, faster, like more powerful. Are you generally always using more aggressive like cutoffs for them to make sure that they aren't grinding through repetitions? Like where do you stand on that sort of camp of like too much grinding, we start recruiting more like oxidative, like type 2 fibers versus like the more glycolytic ones? Is that something that you, I guess, have used in a system before where you're like, I'm trying to get this person strong and powerful, I'm more aggressive with their cutoffs because I just know that they're, able to just grind through like a ton of reps?
Yeah. So I guess the first question I'm asking is, are they already strong? So if you're talking about someone who's actually a truck, squatting well over double body weight, beautiful on double leg lifts, they're really good there, but they lack that up and go. So jumping's not as good, the sprinting, change of direction, that kind of twitchy stuff, maybe the Olympic lifting's not as good either. I usually zoom out a bit and look at other things before I worry about VBT type stuff. I look at the makeup of their training week in terms of like how much work are they doing that looks like a truck versus how much work are they doing that looks like a Ferrari. So plyos is the big one that comes to mind, which isn't a VBT thing at all. It's like if they're lacking elasticity, are they doing any elastic work? People tend to gravitate to the training they like. So I'm a bit of a truck. I like to lift heavy weight. I run enough to be fit, but I don't do enough elastic type work to keep that kind of springiness that I probably should be doing. It's like, because I've never been good at it. I'm not very explosive. It's kind of always been my Achilles heel as an athlete. It's like, well, I should probably be doing a bit of that. Like, and this isn't to say we should stop letting trucks be trucks. Your athlete should still focus on staying truck-like because it's one of the key benefits. It's one of the things that makes them good. But let's try and fill that empty bucket. And so in that situation, it's like, yes, I'm going to not do as much fatigue work, not as much high volume work on the strength stuff, because they just need enough to maintain. I don't care about making them a bigger truck. I want to make them a truck with give them extra, if they're currently a V8, make them a V10 or a V12, if you want to use that as your analogy. So I'm zooming out and I'm looking at like, are we doing maybe band resisted work and like low volume, like explosive power barbell type stuff or dynamic effort type barbell work? Or even bigger picture, am I doing something sort of more plyometric or jumpy? So am I doing jumps, bounds? Maybe if they're, if it's in their category, in their game, some sprinting as well, some change of direction work, throwing, things like that are really ballistic and dynamic. And I'm not even looking at, measuring barbell speed or velocity of that stuff. I just want them doing things that they're not good at, like the stuff that the explosive twitchy athletes are really good at. I want them doing that stuff. And so that means strength might be like less frequency, less volume on those strength days, less total sets, no back off work, for example. We might just get up to our top 2 work sets that are, using some sort of last rep velocity cutoff to keep them away from exertion on that, keeping them fresh for the other stuff that they need to work on to fill that bucket. But it becomes a trade-off. Like if they're strength dominated and that's how they win things, I don't want to take too much away from that, because then I've made them a mediumly good explosive athlete and I've taken away their key advantage.
Yeah.
So there's always trade-offs not in terms of like the power work steals from the strength work, but it steals attention from the strength work.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not doing as much of that thing that made them great, then maybe we're going to take away their big advantage. But on the flip side of that, it goes both ways. Maybe their lack of power is the thing that really holds them back come competition time.
For sure.
Like losing a little bit of strength or losing a little bit of attention on strength is worth the trade-off.
Yeah.
Would be how I kind of look at those kind of athletes.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess it's very contextual to the sport, right? Like I know for CrossFit, like it's not how strong are you? It's more so like there's sport specific loads that you need to be able to move correctly. And it's like strength almost past a certain point becomes not like useless, but it's just like
you become strong enough. Like you tick the box.
Strong enough, literally.
I think there aren't many qualities that you can win at, but I think flexibility is one. You can be flexible enough and you can be strong enough.
Yeah.
I think once you are strong enough, you should go, well, can I do that strength more? Particularly in CrossFit, it's a work capacity thing almost all the time. There's some level of work capacity. So can I be that same level of strength instead of doing it for 2 reps? Can I do it for 10 sets of 2 reps? Can I do it for 10 reps that same weight? Like building volume and capacity at that. Can I do it faster? This is where bar speed and power output tracking comes in as well. Can I do that same weight faster with more intent? And then can I do it in more weird ways? Can I do it on one leg? Can I do it, from a block? Can I do it deeper? Can I do it, horizontally? Can I do it with a sled? Like taking that strength in 360 degrees becomes really valuable as well.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes, like a lot of the stuff we've spoken about is like definitely more in regards to like strength-based movements and measuring those. When it comes to, I guess, weightlifting, and we said obviously that's a smaller portion of people that use the app and maybe even the
I should clarify on that. Weightlifters is a smaller population, but weightlifting is high. We have a lot of power cleans tracked in the app. A lot of power cleans. Yeah.
Okay, cool. When it comes to, I guess weightlifting as a sport, Olympic lifting, but how, I guess, first of all, do you want to give the people listening sort of a variance between the type of metrics that will be utilized? So like peak velocity versus, average velocity, which is generally more so what's going to be tracked in strength-based movements. And then typically, I guess when you were, working more with athletes, or how have you seen other weightlifting coaches best utilize, I guess, velocity training?
Controversial take.
Yeah.
I am moving a long way away from peak velocity.
Okay.
I almost never look at it anymore. And I almost never recommend it. No matter what device this isn't a metric flaw. This is a flaw with the metric itself. It's really noisy. So it's really easy to cheat or have your peak velocity numbers cheat you. So you can do the same rep, the same technique, and have quite a wide variation in your peak velocity scores, whereas mean velocity is very stable. So I ran a bit of a anonymized cohort study across all our, I think it's 2 million plus sets or something like that in metric. I took a small sample of it and I looked at our most popular exercises. So squats, bench, cleans, squat variations, trap bar deadlift. And I looked at peak velocity versus mean velocity, and the correlations were like almost identical. So on the strength lifts, it was like a 90-something% correlation between the two. On Olympic lifts and jumps, it only fell to like the 80s, high 70s. And for me, the complexity of having 2 metrics is more than double as complex as having 1 metric.
Yeah.
When it comes to, so, okay, we're doing cleans today, so we're going to look at peak velocity, but then you're going to do your squats afterwards, you're going to switch back to mean velocity. I think just having that whole conversation for me has really just become not worth it. So I just track mean velocity on everything. And I go, yes, it's going to be a little bit suppressed on my Olympic lifting, but if my form is consistent, my mean velocity is going to tell me consistent things. But peak velocity, I find, is very technique variable. So you can cheat a little bit with your technique. And if athletes find what technique it is that cheats their peak velocity, maybe sometimes that's good, maybe sometimes that's bad. But the answer, I think, for this situation is a metric called time to peak velocity. So if you really care about impulse, rate of force development, measuring the explosive part of an Olympic lift or jump, I like time to peak velocity instead, and doing that as fast as possible. So can I go from my dead hang position, whether it's on a rack, on the knees, on the floor, to the fastest moment of the lift? What's that time look like? I think that's a more stable metric, and it's a completely different conversation from peak velocity, which can be so noisy. As you put mean velocity plus time to peak together, I think you get a better result in terms of complexity. I just always found that every time I switched from mean to peak, I had to explain it.
Yeah.
And then I forgot to change back, or they forgot to change back. And then all of a sudden I was like, what are your numbers on your squats? And they go 1.2. I was like, whoa, sorry, I'm still in peak mode.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Metric allows you to switch metrics by exercise. That's all covered. I just don't think the mental complexity is worth a tiny bit better correlation to performance.
Yeah. I agree. And like, I haven't really utilized much of it yet for that exact reason, that like, it's still reasonably fresh with a lot of the crew. I didn't really want to have to go through the variables between the two, have people potentially like mismatch tracking, and just be able to use the same metric all the time. I also think that like, I didn't really want it to take away from people's technique for them to sort of chase these numbers as well. And then also the variables in like athlete height and all these other things that I fully just haven't wrapped my head around entirely yet to fully understand the target numbers and just how these are going to be prescribed based on how tall an athlete is and how good these different variables. I'm like, you know what? It's probably just like not as valuable in that realm yet for me. And like, I'll just sort of stick to what I feel comfortable with prescribing and reviewing, and being able to at least create some buy-in too, right? Because as soon as you start to feel hesitant with it, they're like, you don't even know what he's talking about.
Yeah,
like,
bullshit radar goes off.
Literally. So I sort of stayed away from it, but I was just, more curious to see if there was something that you had to add in there.
In theory, what we really want to measure is acceleration. What we care about is meters per second. Like acceleration is what we really care about, because that's the number connected to force. But the problem is, because it's like meters per second, it's like it's a rate of change thing. It's just really noisy. It's just like, no matter what you use to measure it, whether it be a string device, a rack mounted thing, metric like an app on your phone, an accelerometer, it's all just really noisy. And so you can't see trends in it and be confident that the data is telling you a story about your athlete. So what it all boils down to, I think the most important thing about metric tracking, lifting with data, whatever you want to call it, is tracking your own numbers over time. I do squats very often, and so therefore I want to see what my squats are week 1, week 2, week 3. If I go heavier, what happens to my squats? If I do more volume, what happens to my squats? Whether it be speed, power, weight, reps, like all those numbers, all we care about is you in the past versus you now. And can you now get better as you in the future? Like, they're the real milestones we're tracking. So can you set new records? Can you beat your own trend? Can you make progress? And lifting with data is just new ways to track and new ways to find that progress. And so like, these numbers just become like, it just becomes a distraction. The complex, I get the fundamental theoretical idea, but they just become a distraction and confusing. And it's like, if you're doing that, it's like, what was the point? The point was to get better. It's like, if we spend all the time diving into the details in the here and now, we're not focused on what really matters, which is apply intent, apply great technique, recover well, come back, do it again. Yeah. Like, they're the things that matter. And it's like, if the complexity of it gets in the way of that, and you spend more time analyzing and scrutinizing your data, it becomes an issue. And velocity-based training already has a complexity branding issue. It already looks too complex. It already seems too confusing. So the more we can just go mean velocity, just track it. Lift. If you lift better, mean velocity will go up. Don't worry about the rest.
100%. To me, it's literally just like you said. It's a data point. It's like the person running and just having that like as a reference. It's like, there's times where I'll get people to film themselves, but they're just measuring it. It's not even, I'm like, don't even worry about what the VBT numbers are. This is just for me. Like, I'm just giving them like sets and rep percentages, and like, I'm just using that as like a reference point, like a snapshot in time for that session. And that's what, like, just once again, it's like building this like athlete profile. So over time, in sort of like 4 or 5 months from now, or as we get back to the season next year, right, we can be like, how did our off season go? Like, what sort of, and like, we've just got more stuff banked. And I see a ton of value in it from that. But yeah, definitely from like the auto regulation of volume, there's definitely a place for the readiness aspect. I've just yet to figure out the best way to implement it as a remote CrossFit coach, where there is like, so many other variables as such.
I think one good starting point as a purely selfish tip is just track it. Don't track it, just collect it. Just have your athletes collect as many sets as they can tolerate on as many exercises you care about, and don't worry about looking at it yet.
Yeah, okay.
The data's all saved there. It's all stored. You can always go back and retroactively look at it and go, this athlete told me they felt like crap this day. Well, let's have a look. Let's see what their numbers would have told us that day had we used it. So you can kind of be silently readiness testing in the background, and then start to integrate and actually use it when you have that, 1, 2, 3 months worth of data. enough to make it meaningful. And then you can go, okay, well, if we'd applied readiness tracking from velocity data here, what would we have done in theory? And then you go, oh, okay, that would have actually been really helpful. That's a good
Yeah.
signal. Or it was a bit noisy. It's still not enough data in the background. Or that application would have actually gone the other way. Like there's a lot of trial and error. I feel like a lot of people tend to feel like they have to go all in, do all of it on day one. If we don't have the
Yeah.
perfect system integrated right now, then we've wasted our time. I think a lot of that
Mhm.
came from the fact that devices were so expensive. You spent this money on this device. You spent this money on this software. We have to use it, otherwise, front of house and the management will be angry at us, and my credit card will be furious. And it's like, well, if it's a cheap app or if it's a free app, even like Metric is for the basic features, just start logging. Just start collecting a bit
Yeah.
of data here and there. Have a little dip your toe in here and there. Try a thing for one athlete, one cycle. If they loved it, try it with 10 athletes, try it with 20. Like you just kind of like can scale things slowly in that sense. And you can be iterative. You can try things like, I'm halfway in this block. They hate this. These numbers are not what I wanted. Let's just strip it and go back to old sets and reps and we'll try again on the next one. There are lots of ways to just kind of iterate and be incremental. Coaches don't like being incremental. They like, we tested the 1RM, have the 1RM.
Yeah.
Now everything must match that for 6 months down the track. It's like, well, that was just a
Yeah.
snapshot of time. Let's be a little more dynamic.
Mhm. No, I definitely agree with that. And speaking of 1RMs too, I'll about finish it off here just because I know you're a busy man, but when it comes to the estimated 1RM and that number as well, is that something that you put a lot of, not like give a lot of weight to, or is it more so once again you're still just primarily using like trend numbers and then once again just like as a somewhat guidance to as a prescription tool?
I don't personally use the 1RM number much. I prefer
Okay.
to use the last rep velocity stuff we talked about. So I
Yeah.
prefer to use open rep schemes and then have sort of a fixed either first rep velocity target. So I want our weights to fall around 0.5 meters per second for our first rep. Or I want to go, we're doing this weight and we're going to do as many reps as we can before this target velocity. So there can be two ways. You kind of either set a top number. We're going to keep adding weight until our first fastest rep of a set is at X speed. So that gives you your proximity to 100%. So the slower that first rep velocity, the closer we are to 100% of a 1RM. On the other side, if you set a last rep velocity target, and you can do these both together, but if you set a last rep velocity, you're telling us how close we're going to get to failure for that weight.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So the
It
kind of
does.
two
No,
ways.
that's literally like almost reading. I'm just open my my Google Sheets here, and like I've got like a linear sort of absolute strength like progression where it is literally that. It's like 3 sets, 6 reps, first repetition to be within 0.5 of 0.55, and then it has like a last rep, essentially like termination set. So I was like, that's one of the ways that I've used it, and then just over time, essentially from a periodization perspective, like sets and reps have changed, and then just the first rep target comes down. So
Yeah, that's my favorite progression is you do blocks of shorter and shorter reps per set and slower first rep velocities. And that's kind of how you can program. The other way you can program is you can leave your rep number open and like have them do as many reps as they can until they hit that rep target. So you can kind of go open weights and we're going to go whatever weight falls at X velocity, that's your fastest rep. Or you can go, we're going to do this weight, I've told you the weight, but we're going to do as many reps as we can until we hit our target speed. So you can kind of go open weight programming or open rep programming and use velocity on either side to become the objective controller of that. So that way, if you come into the gym one day and you're absolutely beat, those numbers will be smaller, not because we told you to do smaller, but because your physiology only let you do less work because it matched where you are in the day. So most weeks, if you left that top fastest rep velocity target the same, most weeks you would do slightly more weight at that velocity.
yeah.
Increment, like it might be a kilo, so it might end up being the same weight once we round back to plate weights. But incrementally, we should go 100, 102.5, 105, maybe 105 again. Maybe you're fatigued, so we go back to 100. But then the next week we're good, so we go to 107. Like over time, that weight at that same speed should go up.
Yeah.
Same. And on the other side of that, there's the reps you can do before hitting your termination velocity, your last rep velocity speed, should go up as well. So week 1 should be 3 reps. Then 4, then 5 before you fail at a certain weight. And so you can do both those things together. You can have open weights and open reps, or you can just do one of them at a time. But to get back to 1RM though, I was going somewhere with this. To get back to 1RM though, both those things completely replace the need to know a 1RM.
Yeah.
So if we have those, we've now actually got a dynamic real-time indicator of your strength without calling it 1RM. 1RM's nice though, because people know what 1RM means and they like to know how much they can bench.
Yes.
So using, you can tie that all back to 1RM, and in Metric, your load velocity profile, you can slide your finger across it and see where your 1RM speed and your velocity profile line up, and that gives you 100%. And then you can go backwards from that and give you percentages. So if you still think, if your brain is stuck in percentage mode, it's like, all right, we do 3x5 at 82%, and then we do 4x4 at 87%, and then we do 2x2 at 92%. Like if you're stuck in that mind, you can use 1RM velocity and work out what speed those would be. And you go, okay, 92% of 1RM is 0.5 meters per second for our fastest rep velocity. So you can go both ways. But I think if you throw out 1RMs, we don't need it anymore. We can just focus on either the fastest rep velocity or last rep velocity, or both. And both of those become substitutes for 1RM. Because what 1RM is telling us, how close to our maximum intensity are we? And then our last rep velocity tells you how much exertion we're putting into our set. How close are we to the point of failure on each of those weights?
Yeah. That's sick, man. I love that. This is great. I very much enjoyed this. Hopefully there was some takeaways from people listening. I know there is some other coaches that I've spoken to about like me just playing around with this in the CrossFit space a little bit, and hopefully I can see tremendous amount of value in it. Hopefully more people, jump on the app because of it. I know I've got like nearly 20 of the remote crew on there now utilizing it, and everyone seems to be pretty bought into it. To be fair, like I haven't thrown it down people's throats. It's realistically just being used primarily in like a squat context at the moment, and like some pressing things, and then some other people I'm just building out some different protocols similar to what we just spoke about with like the linear adjustments, but just changes to like accommodating resistance and stuff like that as well, versus just changing that last rep velocity. But I mean, I could keep talking about stuff for ages, but thank you very much for coming onto the show, man. I appreciate your time very much, and I'm sure I'll talk to you throughout the Discord and stuff over the coming weeks anyway, man. So enjoy the day.
My pleasure, Jason. No worries.
Cheers.